Until now, if you asked me what sort of options do you have for off-road adventure motorcycles for beginners, then the list would be fairly short. And maybe there was just one option as the Hero Xpulse 200 4V. But now the landscape seems to be slowly changing because Kawasaki has introduced this, the KLX 230. I know we all were expecting the KLX 230S, but nonetheless what we see here seems fairly promising. But is it? Well, that is what we'll find out in today's video as I take this course at the Pro Dirt Adventure Park, and I am a complete novice rider, complete newbie to off-roading. So how does it go? Well, let's find out and hit the trails first. Now when you think of an off-road bike, a dual sport bike or an adventure bike, there are a few things that come to your mind. Well, rugged build, check. Long travel suspension, check. A high fender, check. Narrow seat and slim fuel tank, also check. So the KLX 230 pretty much checks all the boxes that you would ideally expect for an off-road or a beginner's off-road bike to do. Clearly the philosophy here is function over form, so you see it gets very minimal body work and it can be beaten around. However, with this minimal body work and a slim build, there are a few limitations too, which we will address later. On the quality front, we haven't come across anything alarming or concerning for that matter. The paint quality, the panel fitment, the switches, everything seems on par and has met our expectations. Like I said earlier, this bike is a proper beater bike and you can take it to the trails or even adventure riding whenever you want. Clearly, the KLX 230 appears to be and is a fairly tall bike. For your reference, the standard seat height is 880 mm and the ground clearance is 265 mm. But this one with the accessory low seat height gets 14 mm lower seat. But is it convenient or inconvenient to get on the bike? Here's the demonstration. I am 5'10" for your reference, and even with these adventure boots, I can't really flat foot. But this is not inconvenient at all. And since the KLX weighs less, I think it weighs about 139 kilo and which is fairly light, you can move the bike around fairly easily. Considering this ground here, the floor is uneven. And again, it gets a fuel tank of just 7.6 liters. So that is the limitation in terms of its practicality, but it's the same thing that supports its lightweight nature. The Slim Jim KLX 230 behind me gets a 233cc single-cylinder air-cooled engine, makes near 18 bhp and near 18 Nm of torque. It also gets a 6-speed gearbox. And like I said earlier, the focus is on practicality. So it gets 240 mm front travel with the telescopic forks and 250 mm rear travel with the linked monoshock with preload adjustability. Now this bike comes with dual channel ABS, which is switchable at the rear. So you can just disengage the ABS at the rear and let the rear slide whenever needed. We spent very brief time with the KLX 230 at this training facility and were only able to push it to a certain limits. Precisely given the various obstacle courses, the KLX 230 needed to be ridden in the second gear for the most part. Right from the floor track with the jumps and sharp turns to the large circuit, the KLX 230's second gear felt tall enough to let us accelerate hard before entering the turn. But even at that time, with the revs near the limiter, the engine's NVH level seemed to be well managed. Now, we are yet to test the bike on road and tell you more about its engine character and make full use of the 6 gears. But what we do expect is good highway riding capabilities since the 230 comes with the 6th gear as well. Now mind you, this is what we expect and are yet to put to test. So the ideal way could be taking it for a long ride but with calculated fuel stops since its fuel tank is fairly small. The motor puts the power down in a linear manner and the acceleration is too fairly smooth. With the rear wheel slipping out on the loose sand every now and then, I was honestly a little skeptical at first about pushing the bike further since it was my first time. But then, as the laps passed by, we realized the KLX 230 is quite light and of forgiving nature. A little counter steer and weight shift did wonders for even someone who had stepped on the trail for the very first time. There were multiple occasions where I almost lost the front end but was fortunate enough to correct it and not crash. Like I said earlier, the KLX is extremely nimble and makes direction changes feel like a piece of cake. And with the wide handlebar, there is ample leverage for you to sit extremely close to the fuel tank and steer it as required. With the narrow seat, it is quite easy for you to move around, but will it be comfortable if you choose to commute and the KLX 230 as your go-to bike? This question remains to be answered. Kawasaki has kept things pretty simple with the KLX 230 on its feature front without really skimping on a lot. The bike gets bulb illumination, switchable dual channel ABS, an LCD with smartphone connectivity using the Kawasaki app. There is an optional charging port too, but it will be offered as an accessory. Now that we spent an entire day riding the KLX 230 at different courses of the Pro Adventure, here are a few things that we've learned. We have two questions primarily. Who is this bike for? And second one, should you purchase it? Let's answer the first question. Who is this bike for? If you are someone who's going to start their dirt riding lessons very soon or off-road riding lessons very soon and want a bike that's not too powerful to scare your wits off, but is not too small to feel underpowered, well then I think the KLX 230 ticks that box. Its proportion and power complement each other and it balances a lot of these things very well. The bike doesn't feel too big and neither is it too powerful, but the way it puts down the power to the rear wheel is fairly peppy and easy to get used to. Now this makes just about 18 bhp, so it's not very powerful either, like I mentioned earlier. But for a small track like this, it has just enough drive in the first and the second gear for you to go gunning whenever you need. To answer the main question, should you purchase the Kawasaki KLX 230? Well, all the time that we've spent with this bike, here are a few things that we've realized. The engine puts the power down in a very linear manner, so it doesn't scare you off even if you are a novice rider or someone who's riding in the dirt or off-road for the first time. The handling is relatively easy, the bike is nimble. As you can see, it's a fairly slim build, so the bike is lightweight. Like I mentioned earlier, it tips the scale at just 139 kg and gets a 7.6 litre fuel tank. The brakes are decent, but we couldn't test the full potential considering there was a lot of dirt riding. Again, I too am a new rider to off-roading. And then, like you see here, its build is very rugged, very practical, it's function over form, so you can take this bike, say, on a dirt track, or even if you were to take it out for a tour. And this bike could probably make a one-bike garage, like I said, either dirt or even if you were to take it for a tour. But again, we spent very little time with this bike, and once we get it for a proper road test, we'll be able to tell you whether it's worth the asking price, which will be revealed in December. As of now, the KLX 230 seems like a very promising contestant in the 200 to 250cc off-road segment, and like I said, it will rival the Xpulse 200. But well, here's the catch. Hero is clearly working on the bigger Xpulse, the Xpulse 210. So let's see what the future holds for this segment and what the Kawasaki has to go up against in the next few months. Thank you for watching BikeWale, and do not forget to subscribe to our channel for more such informative first ride reviews and our road test reviews.